Hi everyone, Susan Storm here, and today I want to talk about ESFP intelligence. I'm really excited to talk about this because ESFPs are one of my very favorite personality types. My closest friend right now is an ESFP, and I feel like they're one of the most underrated types in the Myers-Briggs system. Today, I really want to focus in on the intelligence that they do bring to the world that is often overlooked or underserved in traditional educational institutions. First off, if you're here and you're not sure what ESFP stands for, or if you're new to type and you're curious what ESFPs are like, let me just give you a really brief introduction to the type. ESFP stands for extrovert, sensing, feeling, and perceiving. So extroverts get their energy from interacting with the world around them, people, activities, projects, experiences. The S in ESFP, sensing, that stands for being concrete in your focus, focused on what you can see, smell, touch, taste, hear, having a very realistic perspective. And then the F in ESFP stands for feeling. When they make decisions, they focus on what is going to align with their personal values, what feels right to them, how things are going to emotionally impact them and others. And then the P in ESFP stands for perceiver. Perceivers like to have a very open-ended, exploratory approach to life rather than creating a really strict, rigid routine. ESFPs tend to be really lively, they tend to be really funny, they have really high energy, they're really quick to jump into action and get things started and get things going, get people hyped up for something. But there's more to them than that. A lot of people just see the surface and they aren't really going deeper. So what is ESFP intelligence like? ESFPs are experiential improvisers. That means that they do their best learning when they can use experience, when they can get their hands on things, rather than just studying a theory. They're not the types to sit still and take a bunch of notes while a professor drones on at a whiteboard, although they can do that. They want to do, to try, to touch, to move. The more kinesthetic you can make the experience, the better. You know how some kids have to touch everything? You go to the museum and they just have this urge to touch everything? That's what ESFPs are like. Their brains are wired for sensory engagement, real-world observation, and spontaneous moment-to-moment discovery. That's a different kind of smarts than what most traditional classrooms test for, but it's powerful. Here are some of these greatest strengths. In the moment adaptability. You drop an ESFP into a new situation and they'll find their footing fast. They respond well in crisis situations. They're great at reading the room, spotting opportunities, and responding with creativity and confidence. They have strong observational skills. Thanks to their dominant function of extroverted sensing, they're highly perceptive to what's happening around them. They notice everything, from body language, to the tone of voice, to the fact that, I don't know, your coffee cup is too close to the edge of the table. They see it all. While some of us tend to be stuck in our heads and missing the realities of what's going on around us, I'm speaking for myself as an INTJ, ESFPs are present in their body. They're present in the world around them. They see what's happening. They notice opportunities. They notice risks. When they're driving their car, they become one with the car. When someone is uncomfortable, they're going to see it. ESFPs also have people smarts. They're often emotionally intelligent, socially tuned in, great at making people feel comfortable and heard, and they're also creative problem solvers. They might not write you a 10-page research paper, but they'll come up with an innovative hands-on solution in the real world, and they'll probably enjoy it. As an example, I went to a mom's group about a month ago, and after it was over, this group was it was off in the country. There was no driveway or anything like that. It was very rural and it was very muddy. And my truck got stuck. I couldn't back it out of where I'd parked. It got stuck in the mud and I was just spinning my wheels and I wasn't getting anywhere. And I was kind of freaking out because I was blocking the way for any other person to get out of this little country road that I was stuck in. And I saw my ESFP friend, she came running out, and I was so glad to see her because she's always an optimist and she's always very practical. And she immediately got into solving the problem. She was climbing down under the truck, getting mud all over her. She was jumping on the back of the truck while I tried to get it to move. She got into action right away, and the whole time she was optimistic. She was high energy. She had this, we can solve this energy that really encouraged me a lot in the situation. But she also knew what to do. She was putting boards under the back wheels so we could try to get it up. Like she had all these solutions in mind, and all the other moms, which were, I think, a lot of SJ types, a lot of them just didn't know what to do. They were just like, oh no, what are we going to do? We need to call our husbands. She's like, no, we got this, guys. This is what we're going to do. And she was directing the situation in the most practical, smart way of anyone there. We often rely on ESFPs or even ESTPs is this very in the moment responsiveness, this practicality, this kinesthetic intelligence. They remember how to solve problems in the real world. If there's a real world issue, they think very fast to come up with a solution, and then they remember that solution in the future. If anything has a practical application or a real world application, that's what they're going to remember. ESFPs are also known for their resilience. Despite being often misunderstood in academic environments, ESFPs are among the highest in college retention. They stick with it, they persist, even when the system isn't built for their style of learning. And I've heard this time and time again from ESFPs. They felt like growing up in school, everything was wired to the opposite of their natural preferences. So much of school is about sitting still, listening, repeating, memorizing. The typical school system tends to reward abstract thinking, long-term planning, silent, sedentary learning. ESFPs want to move, they want to experience, they want to get their hands on things, they want to connect and interact. Sitting quietly, flipping through worksheets, reciting formulas, memorizing dates, this can feel very much like a slow death to an ESFP. It's not that they are not smart, it's that the system doesn't recognize or work with their kind of smart. ESFPs learn best when they're physically engaged, doing experiments, building things, role-playing, interacting with other people. They learn best when they have some kind of social interaction, whether they're working one-on-one with a classmate, collaborating in group work, having a great conversation with their teacher, or even mentoring and tutoring other students. When they can interact with someone, then what they're learning becomes more real to them. They also like to see that there's a clear practical use for their learning. Being told you'll need this someday isn't very rewarding for them or very inspiring. They want to know, why does this matter now? Or how can I use this now? That's why kinesthetic hands-on activities are so important for ESFPs, getting them out in the field, getting them actually working with what they're learning. They often perform really well with lab experiments where they're actually testing things with their hands and they're seeing the effects of what they're learning. In day-to-day life, ESFP intelligence shines in all kinds of ways. In careers, you'll find them thriving as emergency responders, nurses, or paramedics, where split-second observation and in-the-moment action are crucial. Performers, designers, or stylists, where aesthetics, improvisation, and physical expression take center stage. Entrepreneurs or event planners, where spontaneity, charm, and people skills help them make magic out of chaos. As parents, they're the ones down on the floor building Lego castles, throwing impromptu dance parties, or teaching life lessons through real experiences. The kids often feel deeply loved and encouraged to be themselves. My best friend here is an ESFP, and I cannot compete with her when it comes to being the fun parent. She is the fun parent. She is active. She is constantly coming up with these fun activities and ideas and ways of making learning exciting. She gets out in nature with her kids for hours every day. I mean, she's on the floor building Legos with them, playing dolls with them, harnessing their imagination, but also getting them up and moving. She just has this optimistic, fun, creative energy that just never stops. As friends or partners, ESFPs are loyal, attentive, and genuinely fun to be around. They'll notice when you're down before you even have to say anything, and they'll know just the thing to cheer you up. They're very emotionally responsive and emotionally intelligent most of the time. And they encourage people to be their real, true, authentic selves because they are so authentic, real, and true. They do not like wearing a facade or pretending to be anything they're not. And they encourage other people through their sheer authenticity to bring their authentic selves to the table. I've also known several ESFPs who work in medical fields as EMTs or surgeons, and as soon as they could see the practical implications of what they'd be learning in a real physical sense, they were steadfast learners. They like to be able to help in make or break crisis situations. They want to make an impact on people. They have to be able to work with their hands. They have to be able to get active. They have to be able to think and learn in creative ways that aren't necessarily always catered to them. I know one ESFP who does her best learning as she's walking around listening to her lectures rather than sitting in a classroom listening to them. She will listen to them afterwards as she's walking around. Sometimes she'll be doing a yo-yo while she's walking around listening to these lectures, but getting up and moving helps the information to sink in better for her. I know another ESFP who literally did his homework while practicing gymnastics in his room with music playing. to try to recite his times tables or things like that. These things he had to memorize while he was doing push-ups or while he was doing the longest handstand that he could. But he had to integrate his physical movement in some way into what he was learning. So a lot of times for ESFPs, if you just don't force them to sit still, then the learning comes so much easier because they're very physical, action-oriented, energetic people. And the more that you can cater to that, the better they can absorb information. So let's look at a few really famous ESFPs just to get a glimpse at some of the varieties of intelligence that you might have seen from ESFPs in the world. We'll start by talking about Richard Branson. Richard Branson is an entrepreneur and a founder of the Virgin Group, which now oversees more than 400 companies across industries such as music, aviation, health, and telecommunications. Despite struggling in school due to dyslexia and just having that high ESFP energy, he left formal education early. Branson has become one of the most recognized and unconventional business leaders in the world. He's known for bold moves, spontaneous decision-making, and people-focused leadership. Speaking about intelligence testing, he once said, "I worry about all the people who've been classified as stupid by IQ tests. Little did they know that often these tests have been dreamt up by academics who are absolutely useless at dealing with the practicalities of the outside world." This is a perspective that many ESFPs will share and relate to and nod along with. They're skeptical of rigid systems and they're drawn to practical real-world experience. Branson's success stems not from traditional academics, but from his willingness to jump into new ventures, adapt quickly, and lead with both instinct and vision. Next, let's look at Andy Samberg. If you've watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine or SNL, you know exactly who I'm talking about. He's absolutely hilarious. He's an American actor, comedian, writer, and musician. He gained national attention through Saturday Night Live and later became widely known for his starring role as Jake Peralta in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's also won a Golden Globe and an Emmy and co-founded the comedy music group The Lonely Island. His whole career has been defined by his ability to improvise, collaborate, and entertain all in real time, often spontaneously with a live audience watching. His performances often rely on physical comedy, emotional range, and a strong sense of timing. These are all strengths of the ESFP personality type. He once described himself by saying, "I'm a tearless clown. If I were to get a tattoo, it would be the two masks, and they would both be smiling." ESFPs often have this really engaging, responsive, positive energy around them, which is one of the reasons that they tend to accumulate a lot of friends throughout life. One of the struggles can be, however, that people expect them to always be that energy lifter, that mood booster, that positivity magnet. And sometimes that gets taken advantage of. Sometimes people are fair weather friends. They're only there for the fun. They're only there for the good times. And then when the ESFP is having a rough time, they turn the other way and they're not interested or they think something's wrong with them. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're friends with an ESFP, do not be that fair weather friend. Actually stick around when the going gets tough because yes, even ESFPs do have their bad days. Next, let's talk about Pink, Grammy award-winning artist and activist. Pink is an award-winning singer, songwriter, and performer who has sold over 60 million albums worldwide. Known for her powerhouse vocals, high-energy stage presence, and emotionally honest lyrics, she's become one of the most influential pop rock artists of her time. From a young age, Pink had this adventurous dream that stuck with her. She said, "When I was little, I was like, I'm going to grow up and hitchhike across the country and get discovered while singing on the boardwalk in Venice Beach." That's just such an ESFP dream, to just wander, to just be out there exploring and to be entertaining and performing and not being stuck in one place, to be free to go and explore and be an adventurer while also expressing yourself creatively. She shows us the ESFP's capacity for authentic expression, physical engagement, and emotional insight. You can hear that in her songs. So as you can see just from these examples, ESFP's intelligence can show up in many unique ways. Sometimes they're the entertainers, sometimes they're the entrepreneurs, sometimes they're the surgeons that are out there saving your life. But what do you think? Do you have any thoughts about this or any questions? Let me know in the comments. Also, if you'd like to know more about ESFPs, you can check out my website at psychologyjunkie.com, where I've written over 1,000 articles about the 16 personality types. I've also written a book called Discovering You, Unlocking the Power of Personality Type. And I also do type clarification sessions. If you're not sure about your type, if you've been waffling between 2 or 3 different types and you need some help, I would love to help you. I'm a certified MBTI practitioner and I've spent over 10 years working with people to help them find their best fit types. It's a really fun process and I would love to see you there. Like and subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.